Hello and welcome. I am Gohar Raza and you are watching Eureka. 90 years of freedom movement forced British to leave India. But when they decided to leave, they divided this landmass which was called India. And a great tragedy unfolded itself. More than 2.5 crore people migrated from one part to another part. There was a family where a 6-year-old child had to migrate and come and settle at Meerut. It was completely unsettled family. There was hardship, not only of migration, but of economic nature. In third class, after 2 years of struggle, he was admitted in a school. But this boy was determined to become a great scientist. I'm talking about Dr. Kishan Lal. Welcome to Eureka and welcome to Rajya Sabha Chairman.
Great pleasure.
It is not very often that such hardship leads you to excellence. More often than not, it breaks people. How did you cope up with that? When you were a child, it must have been extremely disturbing for you as a child, but it never deterred you from doing good science. How did you cope up?
Eventually one has to be grateful to God, but I had a very good ambience in the family in spite of hardship. They valued education. They valued ethical values greatly. My father, my mother had a very strong positive influence. In spite of hardship, I always found some positive things happening also. For example, when I was admitted in class 3, and the teacher said, because he was in class 3, let us see whether he fits in class 3.
And this is after 2 years of disruption.
And I had studied initially Urdu, in Urdu medium, and here I had to switch over to Hindi from a cousin and neighborhood. I picked up the script, and somehow he tested and he said, okay, you go into class 3. And this was also the goodness of the teacher, fairness of the teacher, that he tested me in maths and language, and he said, it's okay, he will manage. And later, of course, after it was a unrecognized school, and the headmaster there took us to a good school in Meerut, and we went there, CAB.
But how come your education was disrupted, yet you could complete your high school in 14 years?
Yes.
You jumped the classes, you were such a good student.
The most remarkable result, two most remarkable results in my life, one in class 3 and other at final of MSc. Class 3, I had only, I was admitted in October. In December, there was a half-yearly exam. And my brothers and family was telling me, don't worry, you will not do well, but because you have restarted again. And when the result was being announced, it was announced orally in the class, and each boy's name was read and the marks given. So apparently, I scored, I remember, 128 or 29 out of 150. And the teacher paused for a moment, and I said, he has topped the class. So for me, this was most unexpected.
That must have been the most joyous occasion for you.
At that time, if you did that well, they will make you jump the queue, and they moved me into class 4. From January, I was in class 4. And then every 6 months, I jumped from one to the other. So finally, I actually
made up
gained
the loss.
one year.
Gained one.
And at the age of 14,
losing 2 years, You
that
gained one.
that
Yeah.
was the thing.
But the hardship continued as you continued your education.
Yes.
You had very many stories, in fact,
Right.
which could be very inspiring. Would you like to tell about how do you sell your books to
Yeah, I would be
pay for
after.
fee?
Yes, I was getting a scholarship after class 10 and also class 12, but the scholarships arrive too late. They will come towards the end of the session. So that you somehow use it somehow. For example, my father, I asked me, what do you want to do with the first scholarship? I said, I want to buy a bicycle. And I'm youngest of the four brothers, so brothers protested that he should give us the new bicycle and we will give him old. He's too young, it is not safe. But my father said, no, he will buy a bicycle of his choice and keep it too. But that is a joke. After intermediate, then my father's health was deteriorating. My brothers tried to help, but I then did not take any money from home. So I self-supported by coaching. I did get scholarship, but as I was telling you that this would come a little later
Right.
in the day. I would get free ship because my career was very good. So after this BSc, I had done well. There was some perturbation, but I was throughout first class, much above the average. And in Meerut College, to get physics admission, that was like a MBA kind of thing at that time. That
Yeah.
means sure job.
Must have been a very big thing.
big thing.
And that too in physics,
Physics.
yeah, mother
And
of
it
all
was
sciences.
Very, it
as
was very,
considered.
and we had a very good teacher, a student of C.V. Raman, which brought C.V. Raman twice to Meerut, and many Nobel laureates. That is a separate issue. So when I got the letter that you have been admitted, then I had to get together 43 rupees, 42.5 to be more precise. So I didn't know what to do. Then finally I sold whatever book I had. I had few books, but whatever I had, and I collected 43 rupees. So I was left with half a rupee, एक अठन्नी जिसे कहते हैं.
जी.
That attorney is brought me to where I am today sitting with you, basically.
And that encouraged you to do and excel repeatedly.
There was challenge. It was, I can say, I can quote, जब जब प्रकृति अहम पर चोट करती है, कुछ चीज अहम से बड़ी जन्म लेती है.
क्या बात है?
नर पर जब भी भीषण विपत्ति आती है, वो और उसे दुर्घर्ष बना जाती है.
क्या बात?
Whatever I achieved through hard work and direct this thing. You see how good teachers were there. I had not known that Professor Roop Kishore, seeing me and doing this thing, he had worked at Bangalore, so he wrote to Professor R.S. Krishnan, being also his co-worker with C.V. Raman, that he has somebody very special and he recommended. And when I passed, I met him. He gave me the letter that now you get a hold all and book a ticket to Bangalore. Then my father had expired in January of that year. That was a very tough, that is why I was saying, that tough exam. Because he was sick and then he expired and then within 2 months I had to give the exam. And he wanted me to pursue research. So he did the best he could. Then I told him, my mother is very disturbed, so I want to be around Meerut or Delhi. At best,
you just couldn't go to ISC Bangalore.
Right. Also in Bharba Atomic Center, I was selected in first go. But then I decided if I have taken the vow to take care of my family, particularly my mother, 2 younger sisters, and so on, so I stayed on there.
But you kept your focus on physics and you wanted to excel in physics.
Yes.
When did you decide to do science?
This was after intermediate. Although I may tell you, now I'm considered very good in experiments worldwide. I'm respected, so many collaborations. But I again underline, in our schools, the experimental work is being neglected all through. We have not paid enough attention. In practicals, in intermediate, I scored roughly passing marks. I would have failed.
So you were much better in theory rather than practical.
No.
When you become a practical.
No, because I never mucked up the data. I did the experiment honestly. If any teacher can even today do that experiment and bring that result, I will be very amazed. They were all bogus results. People were only, suppose you have to do a specific heat, they will write the right value. They were not getting through experiment.
You can't. You can never get.
With those experiments, you can't get.
You can never get.
So you should honestly judge people. It is only after MSc that this experimental work got recognized, that be honest. Even in BSc, I got very high marks in theory. Experimental, then afterwards when I was admitted, my teachers looked into who was my examiner and so on. They said, how could you, as a joke I can tell you, my Professor Mathur, who was head of the department, he was saying, yes, such and such fellow got so much marks in theory. I said, I got 2-3 marks more than him. He said, but you're experimental. I said, that is I did the experiment honestly. This one thing I can say till today, experiment is God for us. This is the truth.
We'll come back very soon. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Eureka. We got the first award in the area of crystallography, the Nobel Prize in the country. But there were not many people who could work in this particular area. You excelled. What were the results of your research?
See, in this we got many fundamentally new results. For example, today it is being used that if you have few vacancies or interstitial, how you see them, how do you characterize them? So we developed a high-resolution diffuse X-ray scattering. Before this work, people thought the vibrations give diffuse scattering. But we sustained work, it took me quite some time, more than 10 years to establish that it is the defects which give the main
vibration.
Similarly, in PTB, there was a problem that when you go through a traffic checkup, can a radar destroy a crystal or can it affect? So we set up a new experiment directly observing what electric fields do to crystals. So like this, we had also fundamental results and also which were applied. For example, in wafers which are used for microprocessor, any new layer will create a stress. So we can measure a stress very accurately and also show by image where the stress is more, where it is less. So these are.
And then also it'll have practical implications as you go at the micro level and sub-micro levels.
Many of these are applied, but the base has to be very strong fundamental, otherwise you can't reach to that kind of application.
High level physics at that time contributed to whatever materials we have today, right from rocketry to our cell phone or maybe our computer today. Without this knowledge of crystallography, we wouldn't have been able to progress nationally, internationally, or whatever as human race.
That is why when I had just finished this topography here, somebody came to NPL and asked for my biodata because I had put a technique where you could image this dislocation and came from Watson Center of IBM.
You excelled in also the area of measurement. Why is it so important for a country to have measurement as one area and invest so much of money? Because a kg is a kg and 1 hour is 1 hour and then 1 meter is 1 meter. Why should it be very important for a nation?
See, this is also very important because today if you become truly industrial country, truly what our new Prime Minister is saying about making India, you must make sure the quality of your products is at international level. And quality, if in a simple language, is nothing but measure of, it's a function of different measurements. So these measurements, I can say I have measured and I got this. Without standards, your measurement is not traceable to international level. It is not a question of India alone. There has been a problem till 10 years ago. The products of Europe will have to again undergo a testing in US if they import there for quality evaluation. So all communities decided that we will form what is now a mutual recognition arrangement, that a measurement made in a laboratory will be accepted worldwide. So when I took over as a director, I had to put a lot of effort that NPL should come into this club where our measurements are also accepted. This was also a WTO requirement.
NPL became the national body, in fact. Right from the beginning, it was a national body, but it also became international body to standardize things in the country, to provide measurement and issue certificates, which were recognized internationally.
Second thing which I want to stress, which is also now being recognized well, there came a question in chemical measurement. For example, the standards for water. So water, if you go by WHO, there are roughly 30 parameters. There are these dangerous, toxic elements like lead, cadmium, mercury, for example, arsenic in some of the areas. And I personally went to some parts of West Bengal because there was a problem. If you made 3 laboratories to tell how much arsenic, there was a huge variation because they did not have good standards. So NPL started. That was my main, at one time, started a inter-laboratory program where nearly 30 labs were working. We produced the standards of all these and made it available to laboratories at a very nominal cost. So for this, we had to do very thorough work to begin with, including preparing a water which can be treated as reference. You can treat this as blank or reference and then measure properties. This got recognized worldwide then, that our standards in this, we named them BND, Bharatiya Nirdeshak Dravyas, BNDs, and they are very well recognized also.
So if you don't have proper measurement standards in the country, then you cannot judge the kind of water we are drinking at one level, but you can't also produce good drugs because there, again, the measurement is extremely important. You talk in terms of milligrams and micrograms at that level.
Yes. Standardization, quality measures are very important for you. Not merely for only scientific curiosity, but public health and also commercial health.
Will you give credit to the political and scientific leadership of 30s and 40s and 50s to think of this important area and make it such an important work for NPL to do?
You must give credit to Pandit Nehru to begin with. It was his wisdom that he, even as a vice president of interim government of India, in January 1947, 8 months before India became independent, laid the foundation stone of National Physical Laboratory. There is a book called Plan of National Physical Laboratory. If you read there, you see how they thought of which standard to come from where. At that time, a team had gone to different places. I quote, maybe I was not prepared for your question, but I can quote, maybe not verbatim. There was one Dr. Lyman Briggs, who was the president of National Bureau of Standards at that time, now called NIST.
Right.
He told him, I do not know what is your plan for chemistry in NPL. Now, this was the wisdom of our founder father. We are a national physical laboratory. But right from the beginning, we had analytical laboratory, chemistry lab there. And Lyman Briggs said, I don't know your plans for analytical chemistry, but we have found it indispensable. Without this, your measurements become indeterminate, which later became characterization of materials. I was telling you, you should know the main components, impurities, structure, and the defects. This at that time was not that well established globally. But our wisdom of our founding fathers, of course, all the top scientists was in the planning committee, and the patronage of Pandit Nehru. Imagine in 1947, we had nearly 500 measurement systems. India did not have a proper, for kilogram, we had a 1 pound thing which was kept by Mint in Bombay, came from England about 1868 or something like that. A meter also, a yard, in fact, not a meter.
Yard at that time.
Yard came in 1865 or 68 and was never calibrated. It remained as, without calibration, it has no meaning.
Absolutely.
It has no meaning. So, and when Pandit Nehru in 1957, one of the boldest thing he did was introduce metric system, same system across the country. Earlier, if you went to Jaipur, your Ser or this Jaggery would be against a different measure. Not the same in Delhi, not the same in Jodhpur. So he converted India to become the metric and given NPL the responsibility to make sure all measures relate to the same unit of standard. And we brought from this International Bureau of Weights and Measures the kilogram and the first meter, though now they are redundant. Now we don't go by those.
It's a very different method today.
Methods to measure.
By
but
which
as an anecdote, I can tell you, when somebody takes over as a director, this is the only two things which are transferred from one director to the other. For historical reasons, we still have them.
Pandit Nehru was very, very closely associated with INSA, Indian National Science Academy.
Yes.
And you had the honor to serve as president of
Yes.
it. Would you like to say something about that?
See, this was his great passion for science and technology. See, we were founded in 1935. It started with a Science Congress initiative, and all the greats of Indian science, like Meghnad Sahab particularly, C.V. Raman, and all these great people of Indian science, they convinced that it took few years to convince there is a need for a academy like Royal Society in India. And finally, 12 years before India became independent, 1935, it was established. First president was a British scientist, Farmer, a geoscientist. And it had few rooms in Asiatic Society building. We didn't have proper this thing.
Correct.
So in 1945, to be fair to the British government of that time, they recognized INSA, at that time it was called National Institute of Sciences of India, NISI, as the premier body, technically called the premier body of science in India. But then it was realized it should move to Delhi. It should have a proper central role, and that happened even before, just before independence. I must say that thing. And they were scouting for land around Delhi University. First, the idea was to be around Delhi University. That was one great center of learning and so on. But it was again through the governmental, involvement that we got this very central place close to ITO, very central place, this piece of land. And Pandit Nehru laid the foundation stone of this building. He was one of the rare political figures to be elected as a fellow of the academy. He was one of our fellows. But this is not given routinely, very rarely. Mrs. Gandhi was another one, but very unfortunately, before she could sign the register, she was not in this world.
It's been just wonderful talking to you. It's been so inspiring. But in order to inspire the younger generation, would you like to sign off by giving some advice to the younger generation? A message, maybe?
Sometimes I want to give, we have a great tradition in India of learning. I often get very nonplussed by even looking at some of the Upanishads, this 2-3 word phrases. One of them is, for example, Prajnanam Brahma. The absolute knowledge is God. And very recently in Vrihad Aranyak Upanishad, I find something about science. It gives Vigyan, Anand, Brahm.
Kya baat hai?
The Vigyan,
Kya baat?
Anand, and Brahm. That is just as a great motto, but try to go deep into science. Don't be superficial. Then the pleasure you will get, rewards will come. The first and foremost is your spiritual pleasure. And it is good for the country. I only appeal is we should do more of experimental work. If we really want to be a manufacturing nation, experimental work should be emphasized and supported. This is my main message.
Science can be as spiritual as any other domain of knowledge. You don't have to go to a Baba. You can go to a scientist, do wonderful science, and that'll give you spiritual satisfaction. May I, on your behalf, ask our viewers to send queries which you will be happy to answer?
With great pleasure.
Write to us at eurekarstv@gmail.com. We'll come back next week with as fascinating a personality as Dr. Kishan Lal is, though it's difficult to find such personalities in the country. Goodbye. It has been a pleasure.
Great
to
pleasure
talk
for
to you.
me. Thank you, Dr. Razak.